So we're finally ready to start to answer the question, is it a tautology using a truth table? So let's get to it. So let's consider the sentence not P or Q. What we have to do is survey all the situations. Well, what matters to the truth value of not P or Q is the truth values of P and of Q. And there are 4 different possible combinations of their being true or false, and the rows of the truth table cover all 4 of the situations. There's a situation where both P and Q are true. There's a situation where P is true and Q is false. There's a situation where P is false and Q is true. And there's the situation where we're both false. Now we're going to learn how to set up this part of the truth table, but not in this module. In this module, we're going to have that set up for us. Once that's set up for us, as it's going to be in our homework, then we have to figure out, okay, negation P or Q, that's a tautology if it's true on all the rows, and it's not a tautology if it's false on at least one row. So it turns out that this is true on this row because Q, the right disjunct, is true on this row. What about this row? Well, in this case, the whole thing is false. Why? Well, Q is false, so the right disjunct is false. Now, P is true on this row. That means negation P is false. So this disjunction has 2 disjuncts, the disjunction Q, which is false, and the disjunction negation P, which is also false, and the disjunction is therefore false. So we can actually stop. We've just discovered that negation P or Q is not a tautology because it's false on this row. If we wanted to, we could continue and calculate, it turns out it's true on this row, and it turns out it's true on that row. I'm not going to work through it, this example, because we don't need to. We know that it's not a tautology because we know it's false on the second row. So that in general is how we proceed. We need to find out the sentence's truth value on each row. If you find a row where the sentence is false, then you know the sentence is not a tautology. And so in the module, what would you do? You check the box next to the false row and you choose no, as I'll show you in a second. On the other hand, if you find that the sentence is true on every row, then the sentence is a tautology, and then in the module you'll choose yes. So that's what we do. We just go through and we look at each row, and if all the rows are true, then the sentence is a tautology. If there's at least one row where it's not true, then where the sentence is false, then the sentence is not a tautology, and we're done. So let's go and take a look. We figured out the answer. Let's go and take a look at some examples. Let's start with not P or Q. We've been working with this one. So here we see, okay, what we're going to do, actually. So here there's this question, is this formula a tautology? And we can choose yes or no. As it turns out, this is what we were just looking at, and we decided it's no. But if we just say this, no, then it's going to tell us that the argument is we're incomplete. We have to find the row in which all the premises are true and the conclusion is false. Or more specifically, we have to find the row in which the formula is false. So let's do that. So what I've done to help me here is I've opened up this definitions for negation, disjunction, or conjunction file. And it has just this one chart that shows how the truth value of the conjunction and the disjunction and the negation depend upon the truth value of its immediate parts. So if we come over here, we're going to say, okay, P is true. Well, when P is true, then negation P is false, so that's false. So now we have a disjunction whose left disjunct is false. This is a disjunction, right there, there's the disjunction symbol. The left disjunct is false, and the right disjunct is true. So that means we're on this row of the table because we have this is box or circle, so the left disjunct is box, the right disjunct is circle. And we have a disjunction with a false left disjunct and a true right disjunct. So we're on this row of the table. The disjunction is true, and so we'll click true. And indeed, that's right. If we clicked false, we would have gotten an error message. So good, it's true on that row. Are we done? No. No, we're not. This answer is correct, but we still haven't proved that it's correct. It's not a tautology, but we haven't yet proved that it's not a tautology. Let's look at the next row then, the row where P is true and Q is false. So P is true, Q is false. Okay, so if P is true, then not P is false. So now we have a disjunction which is where both disjuncts are false. And so that's down here on this row of the truth table, false and false. And if we look, we see here's the disjunction column, and in this row, the disjunction is false. When both of the disjuncts are false, the whole disjunction is false. So we'll put false here. And that tells us that not P or Q is false when P is true and Q is false. And now we have a false on this row. Oh, good. So are we done? Well, it looks like we've shown the formula is not a tautology. It is a tautology if it's true on all the rows. It's not a tautology if it's false on at least one row. So we'll click check. But it says no, you have to check the row. So what we need to do is we need to go to that box, and we click it, and then we check, and now it's correct. And note, we didn't have to do these because they don't matter anymore. Once we know that the formula is false on at least one row, then we know the formula is not a tautology. And so we tell the program, here's the row on which the formula is false, and that means it's not a tautology, and we're done. Okay, let's look at another problem. Let's look at P or not P. Okay, now P or not P in a way is nice because it only has the sentence letter P, and so its truth table has only 2 rows. We don't have to ask how do P and Q combine. What's the case when P and Q are true? What's the case when P and it's true but Q is false? Because only P shows up in here. So let's see what happens. Let's go here first. Okay, so here P is true, and then there's another occurrence of P, and it's still true. So when P is true, negation P is false. So now we have a disjunction which is true or false, right? There's the P, that's true. There's the not P, that's false. So this is left disjunct is true, right disjunct is false. So let's look. Here's where we have left disjunct is true, right disjunct is false, true, false. And we look over here in the disjunction column, that tells us that the disjunction is true, which is the way it should be. If at least one of the pieces of the or is true, then the whole or statement is true. So this is true. Good. So now we know when P is true, P or not P is true. Let's look what happens when P is false. So when P is false, then not P. When P is false, not P is true. So now we have a disjunction where we have the left side is false and the right side is true. So let's see what happens by looking at the chart. So again, we say, okay, left side is false, right side is true, disjunction column, the whole thing is true. So we say the whole thing is true. And that again is as it should be. An or statement, if one of the pieces of an or statement is true, then the or statement is true. And one of the statements, this is an or statement, and one of its pieces, namely this one, is true, and so the whole thing is true. So good, we'll click OK. And now we have it's true on both sides, or on both rows. So is the formula a tautology? Yes, it is, because it's true on all the rows. Let's check that. And it says it's correct. We don't need to check any of the boxes, because what makes it a tautology is that it's true on all of the rows. So you only check a box when the sentence is not a tautology and you found a row on which the sentence is false. And then you have to click that row and say, here's a row on which the sentence is false. But when it's true on all the rows, don't click a row. Okay, so that's how you do it. I'm going to stop this video, and I'm going to have another video that has just me doing some more examples, which I think you'll find helpful. And also, I really recommend that you have this table either printed out or open on your computer while you're doing these problems. You'll find that it helps you to learn the truth table. In the end, or the definitions. In the end, you want to internalize this and memorize it. It's going to help you to do that if you have it out in front of you, either as a separate piece of paper, or you can print it out, or you can actually even write it down in your notes. That's the best. That's going to get it in your brain the best. Or you can have it open on the computer. So, okay, that's it for this video. I will do some more examples of truth table problems in the last video.